An outstanding academic performance will safely land you a top consulting job. Now, when you check the promotional materials of McKinsey, BCG, Bain, and the other top consulting firms, you will quickly get the idea that these companies look for very intelligent candidates with clever brains and so on. And so if you at school, at high school, at college, at university have always had very good grades, you may almost feel entitled in the sense that you have always been a top performer in your academic field, so you will safely make it into the top consulting world. Is this move true or not? I would like to approach this question like a management consultant would do it, by a market sizing exercise. Now, market sizing, that's a skill that you will have to master once you enter the consulting job interviewing stage. And I will give you now a live demo here in case one day you get asked, could you estimate how many candidates apply every year for a consultant job at the top consulting firms? Now, I will make the German case here, but I'm pretty much sure that these lessons can be applied to most other countries too. So let's start with the number of students that actually finish an academic degree every year. So there's around 250,000 German students finishing a bachelor's degree every year, around 150,000 master students, and 25,000 students who finish with a PhD degree. And now in terms of people looking for a job, I think we can safely assume that the majority of postgraduates will then also look for a job. A much smaller share of bachelor undergraduates will do so because they typically, or most of them, advance with taking a master's degree. And there's also some experienced hires who maybe switch jobs and so on. So I think for this market sizing exercise, it's reasonable to assume there are around 200,000 job seekers per annum. And now, how many of those are applying for a top consulting job? I'm assuming here around 5%, and you may expect that these are also sort of a top 5% in their fields because we know consulting is competitive and so on. And this would lead to a figure of 10,000 consulting job applicants per year. And you may think that's a high number, but also I need to tell you, in Germany, consulting, top management consulting is really one of the top career choices because investment banks or so on, they don't have such a strong reputation in comparison to consulting. So of course I want to offer you some validation checks here. What I found for you is this article from a German business magazine, Wirtschaftswoche, and it's already rather old, from 2015, but it's still useful. Headline was, Star Consultants at McKinsey, the great tidying up at the cleverest company in the world. And this article included some interesting data. So it said that annually McKinsey Germany receives 15,000 applications, and then McKinsey invites around 1,200 candidates for job interviews. And the article also said that year McKinsey wanted to hire 250 new consultants. But let's first keep this number in mind, 15,000 applications per year. In comparison, my estimate of 10,000 applications is almost conservative, but is certainly not unreasonable. Now let's go back to our market sizing exercise, and for the sake of consistency, I will proceed with my estimate of 10,000 consulting job applicants every year. Now a question, of course, is how does this compare to the number of job openings by German top management consulting firms every year? And you just saw this number of 250 openings by McKinsey in 2015. In general, German consulting firms regularly communicate they every year take in a couple of hundreds new management consultants, even though, of course, you don't know if this number is true or not. But let's just assume it's partially true. Then second question is, how large do you draw the circle of top consulting firms? Is it tier 1, tier 2, tier 3? I think it's reasonable to assume that there are between 1,000 and 3,000 top consulting from job openings every year, and that would lead us to around 2,000 new consultant hires per year by the German top consulting firms. And that then implies that from these 10,000 academic top performers mostly. Only 20% can be served with a job in a top consulting firm, and around 1% of all job seekers land such a job. I would like to add that the German consulting market belongs to the largest ones in the world. So that means if you apply for a consulting job in Germany, yes, it's a very competitive process, but still your odds may be slightly better than maybe if you compare to the United Kingdom. And to put this into another perspective, I brought for you another validation check here. This is actually an interview with the former McKinsey World Managing Partner, last updated in 2020. And he is quoted with the following statement: McKinsey gets the cream of the cleverest kids from college and business school. 201,000 applied last year for 2,200 places, and I assume these are world figures. So you can conclude from this, for McKinsey there's an acceptance rate of just 1%. Now, what does all this mean for you? Well, you just saw the numbers don't add up. Getting into top management consulting is a very competitive process, and I'm afraid fantastic academic credentials are just a basic requirement for that. You will have to bring much more, such as great work experience, exciting extracurricular activities, an interesting background, and I should say we will cover all this in UN Consulting. But for the statement, an outstanding academic performance will safely land you a top consulting job, I'm afraid as such it's absolutely not true, because it's insufficient. So I can only give 1 out of 5 stars. Getting into a top consulting firm is a tough challenge, but you're right here with me on UN Consulting. So make sure that you subscribe to the UN Consulting channel right now and happily like this video. This video is part of the UN Consulting job test, in which I help you find out if you should become a consultant. If you would like to take part in this interactive test, then I warmly invite you to first check out the test instructions in this video here right now. If you're already taking the test, then let's move on. In the next video, I shed light on the common consulting myth that during your consulting life you can explore many different business functions and industries. Is it still true or not? You shall find out here.